For more on the economy in Mexico and Latin America, I sat down with our special guest, Saruhan Hatipoglu. He's the CEO of BERI Intelligence. That's a consulting firm that focuses on global strategies. And I started by asking him about the potential changes that he's watching for in 2015.
I am not optimistic at all in the South, unfortunately. Well, Argentina, Venezuela, we don't even need to talk. They have a long period of recession and transformation that they will need to go through. Brazil, unfortunately, is a classic case of stagflation with low inflation, low economic growth and growing inflation. They have to increase interest rates to fight inflation. The government is going to be involved in controlling prices, causing price distortions. And we're also watching the Petrobras controversy, the corruption scandals that implicated high-level businessmen as well as members of the government. People are very upset about that, and they're going to be demonstrating more and more.
Is it, do you think, a function of governments not acting correctly, not acting fast enough, or something else?
Well, I think in Brazil it was the reforms that were pledged and never took place, right? You can count on free money or easy money only for a certain period of time. Things are changing. Now, slowly interest rates in the U.S. are going to increase. That makes government bonds in the U.S. much less riskier, obviously, and investors are going to go to that. They're not going to buy Brazilian government bonds because of the risks that are there. So there's certain things that the government should have done in terms of structural reforms, but it's not only that, right? It's the cyclical factor too. Times are changing. The U.S. is going to be slowly tightening, and the currency, of course, is going to depreciate, which is inflationary. They have to deal with that in a very careful way, but I'm not seeing that. They're thinking about intervening in prices, price controls in Brazil. It's going to distort prices.
Well, they tried that in other places. It didn't seem to work.
Yeah, it's a bad idea.
Privately, from your peers, there's some very serious concerns about Venezuela. Things are not well. Yeah. A lot of things have been attempted. A lot of things have failed. The stability of the place for next year, geopolitical stability, is going to be potentially something we're going to watch very closely. Why is this so important to Latin America?
It is important because Venezuela needed to be stable for the region to be stable. But I don't think anybody believed that they would be able to pull this with the leadership that they had. The incredible interference in the economy that the government has, price controls, controlling big oil companies in general. And of course now with the oil prices so low, the government is unable to fulfill its pledges of subsidies to the population, rural area, that support the government, right? So that support is waning. We are expecting a turmoil in Venezuela next year. I'm saying that with a heavy heart because they had a chance to be stable. They had a chance to go to elections with the opposition party and maybe change the governance style. But I think people are going to make that decision for Venezuela, and that's always a dangerous thing.
Now, I will preface this by saying that it's unfair. Some of us in the media, and I'm sure some in the private sector, clump Latin America, everything south of the border in the United States as one. And that's not true. They each have their individual governments. Absolutely. They each have their individual economies. They each have their individual exports and imports and different levels of innovation. There certainly must be a couple places that you are more optimistic about.
I love Mexico. Mexico has done a great job. Mexico is going to have a low interest environment. Consumption after the tax increase, consumption tax increase, is going to, actually we're seeing signs that it's getting better. And look what Mexico did when I talk about structural reform. They reduced their export dependency from 38 to 40% in 1990 to 13% as of last year. They diversified, and they're benefiting from that. It can be done. It can be done. They've done it. Of course, politics in Mexico is certainly a factor that could interfere with growth. Recent scandals, we all know, that could have an impact on economic growth. But I do like what I'm seeing. There's also going to be reform in oil and telecom sectors. It's going to be open to competition. There's going to be much more efficiency coming back in mid to long term. So even growth sustainability, something which we have not talked much in Mexico, may take place.
What has to happen in Latin America for more countries to get on your list of doing well?
Like I said, structural reforms. They have to address the painful issues. Like Mexico relied on oil exports. They suffered as they went through that diversification. Sometimes you have to suffer short-term to make long-term gains. I don't think any of the Latin American countries or South American countries, maybe with the exception, not maybe, with the exception of Chile, I would say, they actually did certain things in the past that helped their economic performance. But it was not done enough. And we're seeing that it was not done enough because the region is suffering right now.
Thank you, Saruhan Hatipoglu, CEO of Business Environment Risk Intelligence.